You are accessing an unclassified data stream. The subject parameters cover anomalous somatic interference and cognitive time loss, recorded between 1961 and 1975. The data in this explainer relies strictly on declassified case files, medical documentation, and historical records. Look, the forensic details we're about to cover, they aren't theories. They are documented biological and psychological events. And the sheer physical weight of this data, it's suffocating.
We have to ask the fundamental question: what exactly happens to the human biological system during 120 minutes of complete cognitive time loss, when the clock on your dashboard says 2 hours have passed, but your memory is a total void? Why does a man return with a completely paralyzed biological system? Or worse, exactly 5 days of unexplained facial hair growth? What occurs in the dark?
Section 1. The phenomenology of missing time.
We'll start by establishing the geographic and temporal parameters of the first comprehensively recorded somatic interference events. This phenomenon of missing time is central to these encounters. It's not just psychological amnesia. It is verifiable chronological displacement. And the chronological progression of the primary case files reveals a distinct, terrifying escalation in duration and severity. First, September 1961, Route 3, New Hampshire, 120 minutes of cognitive time loss. Second, October 1973, Pascagoula River, Mississippi, approximately 20 to 40 minutes of absolute somatic paralysis. Third, November 1975, Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, Arizona, a total biological disappearance lasting 5 complete days.
Section 2. The Zeta Reticuli Precedent. Let's open the 1961 file on Barney and Betty Hill. The location is a rural stretch of Route 3 in New Hampshire. A brightly lit, pancake-shaped craft descended within 50 to 80 feet of their vehicle. But we aren't here to analyze lights in the sky. We are analyzing physical, residual evidence. Upon arriving home, the subjects documented severe physical deterioration: a torn binocular strap, a violently ripped dress dusted with an unidentified pinkish powder. Furthermore, there were shiny, concentric circles burned directly into the trunk of their 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air. When a compass was placed near these residual magnetic signatures, the needle whirled rapidly and uncontrollably. The physical environment had been altered. Under clinical hypnotic regression with Dr. Benjamin Simon, Barney Hill began to describe the invasive medical procedures performed inside that clinical metallic room. They took hair, they took skin scrapings, they punctured Betty's abdomen with a 4 to 6 inch needle. And when asked to describe his own examination, Barney said, "Like that, but my eyes are closed, and I only have mental pictures. And I am not in pain, and I can feel a slight feeling. My groin feels cold."
Section 3. The Pascagoula River Incident.
Moving to the 1973 file. This represents a critical escalation. We move from missing time on a deserted highway to a direct physical abduction sequence on a riverbank involving 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 19-year-old Calvin Parker. Forensic interviews yielded highly specific morphological data regarding the unidentified biological entities, or UBEs. Pale gray, wrinkled dermal layer, bullet-shaped craniums lacking a discernible neck, slit-like oral cavities, conical, carrot-like facial protrusions in place of ears or noses, mitten-shaped or crab-like extremities. And they did not walk. Their legs were fused, utilizing a levitating locomotion to approach the subjects. Crab-like claws, floating towards you in the dark. Just imagine the sheer visceral panic of standing on a pier, completely frozen, while something with no eyes and wrinkled gray skin reaches out to grab you.
The primary mechanism of capture was frequency-induced paralysis. Hickson reported that the exact moment the entities placed their claw-like extremities under his arms, his entire biological system went completely numb, absolute somatic immobilization. They were floated into a brightly lit room where a hovering robotic eye-like device performed a non-invasive systemic scan of Hickson's paralyzed body.
And the psychological fallout was immediate. When Hickson and Parker reported this, it triggered mass civilian panic. The Jackson County Sheriff's Department was completely overwhelmed by the influx of media and terrified residents. The trauma wasn't just isolated to the two men. It flooded the entire state of Mississippi like a virus. People knew something had breached their reality.
Section 4. Directed energy and trauma.
We must now correlate the Pascagoula optical scanning device with broader documented phenomena. While Pascagoula involved non-invasive sensors, subsequent and parallel anomalous encounters escalated to severe, directed energy trauma. The lights reported in these encounters are not functioning as simple illumination. They are structured light beams.
Declassified intelligence catalogs define these as non-scattering, cone-shaped, or cylindrical energy emissions. They function as tools. They sweep landscapes, lock onto targets, and deploy kinetic force. Exposure to these directed emissions results in localized thermal burns, severe erythema, nausea, and neurological disruption. This is weaponized, or at least heavily industrialized, energy application.
Section 5. The Apache Sitgreaves Disappearance.
Which brings us to November 1975, the Travis Walton file. This is the breaking point in the historical data. The exact moment the phenomenon shifts from a brief, localized encounter to a prolonged, violent disappearance. The forensic scene is this. 6 logging crew members witness a 40-foot disc hovering in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, emitting a high-pitched buzz. Travis Walton approaches within 110 feet. Without warning, a concentrated blue energy discharge strikes Walton. The kinetic force of the structured beam lifts him into the air, suspending him weightless, before violently slamming his body to the forest floor. The crew, believing him to be dead, fled the area.
Walton woke up in agonizing pain. The air was heavy, humid, asphyxiating. He was lying on a reclined bed, surrounded by 3 biological entities, short, domed heads, and he later said, "The creepiest thing about them were those eyes. They just stared through me."
5. That is the exact number of days Travis Walton was completely removed from the Earth. When he was finally deposited back in Heber, Arizona, he was found in a catatonic state, severely malnourished and possessing exactly 5 days of facial hair growth. He truly believed he had only been gone for a few hours.
It is absolutely crucial to address the institutional verification protocols deployed in these cases. In Pascagoula, law enforcement secretly recorded Hickson and Parker in an empty interrogation room, capturing raw, unfiltered terror that investigators concluded was literally impossible to fake. In the Walton case, the state administered polygraph exams to the logging crew to rule out murder. They passed. And in multiple instances, including the Hill file, Air Force radar stations corroborated unidentified aerial anomalies matching the exact timestamps of the somatic interference. The impartial, documented reality holds up under interrogation.
Section 6. Unresolved signatures of abduction.
We will now initiate the final comparative analysis of the 3 unclassified case files, aggregating the structural patterns of modern abduction phenomenology. Observe the data parameters. In 1961, displacement was 120 minutes, induced by audio trances. By 1973, displacement was 20 to 40 minutes, utilizing absolute kinetic contact paralysis. By 1975, the displacement extended to 5 days, initiated by a devastating directed energy weapon, concluding in a humid, asphyxiating containment environment. Look at the timeline. Look at the terrifying escalation in the severity of the biological interference. It goes from a clinical examination to being hit with a kinetic energy blast and locked in a heavy atmosphere for nearly a week. They are refining their methods, they are getting bolder.
The physical traces are logged, the residual magnetic signatures, the paralyzed biology, the missing time. The data exists on the record, so I leave you with this. If the polygraphs, the radar tracks, and the physical burns on their bodies are classified as factual data, what exactly is operating the light?